So here we are doing this podcast for waiting to dry. And truth be told, I fucking hate waiting to dry. The amount of times the thing as an ink illustrator, as any artist, is you have to learn to see, like, figure out what dries at what, speed. So, like, when you're doing a bunch of drawing, you got a bunch of black. You're like, oh, I just want to fill in the black. It's like the gravy train. I just want to fill in all this black. And so I always wait for that last. But a lot of times you get eager and you want that shit to really fucking dry so you can, like, get the reward. And the amount of times I lay down some ink and then I fucking smear it and then I look down and I smeared the shit out of my drawing. I hate waiting for this shit to dry. Like, I seriously fucking hate it, and it's real. The struggle is real.
But it's interesting because a lot of your work, Josh, has you think a lot about the idea behind it.
Right.
So I was curious about, like, what you think of that sort of even thought process behind.
I mean,
coming to painting from that direction, really.
Well, for me, it's just kind of like a thing I'm obsessed with.
Mm-hmm.
It's maybe when I was younger, I'd be like, bullshit. But the older I get, the more I think what's important is, like, pursuing what's natural to you to a point. You know what I mean? Like, so for me, it's hard not to think about what I'm trying to convey through what I'm putting on the thing. And one of the big things I used to draw when I was in high school, bringing it back to then, which it's like super lame and it's very dark, like a sad high school kid would draw.
Yeah.
Not that I was, like, necessarily sad, but whatever. But I used to always draw this, like, it's not even necessarily sad. It was almost like anti the man.
Oh, for sure.
But it used to be like this guy hanging, of course, because when you're a high schooler,
were you emo?
There's no subtlety. I was not at all. It's funny. But then I would draw, like, a window, right? And then I would draw, like, a speaker in the room, and I would draw, like, this, like, piece of hanging cheese. And there was like a cross in the corner of this room they were hung in or whatever, and, like, cobwebs and something. And I would always call it brain dead. And I'd be like, the guy hanging is the brain, and, like, the window is like your eyes, because your eyes are the window to your soul. Like, and it's like this very, like, obvious and horrible, like like symbolism for everything. And,
yeah.
And oh yeah, I'm getting embarrassed. I should have just talked about it.
But yeah, that's actually kind of why I shy away from a lot of, like, stuff that I try to, like, pull in that has that sort of meaning, because I just feel like a lot of it is just so cliche.
Right.
If I don't.
One thing I will say, though, is, like, the older I get, the more I'm, like, into the subtlety of it. You know, obviously, I'm, way more kind of like, I mean, I think it's like, and it's not necessarily for anyone but me at this point, like, I'm not adding, like, no one's ever going to know what, like, all the random stuff I put into my painting and what the thought process is behind it. And every once in a while someone might ask, and there's definitely, like, easy ones to, like, so, like, that's obviously that, like, I paint a lot of little houses in it.
Yeah.
It's like, that's obvious, like, these are the obvious things. It's like, it's just kind of like that's what this means. And now you have to, like, figure out, like, all the little things that kind of explain what the house is, like, to this person. And to me, that's, like, it's just, like, naturally how I think. And I think that's fine. And I think the other way is by, like, the other thing being, I'm just trying to paint something beautiful, or I'm just trying to capture a moment, not necessarily anything hidden in there, or anything I'm trying to say is just as good, as long to me it's good as long as it's almost like what you naturally lean to. Like, I mean, even then, who gives a fuck, really? But yeah, I would say it's sometimes I'm not that into like now that I'm older and not that much against the man. I'm not that into like being different for different sake. Does that make any sense? Like, I don't know if necessarily this painting is trying to do that, but but that just like that's not even necessarily about artwork, more about like people in general.
Yeah.
Also, back to the guy, Blake Austin Hughes, Rob, is that his?
No, that's what he did.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That is an action.
Yeah. The one thing I wanted to mention though was he said it's super easy to steal from art shows, but I don't agree
Depends
with that.
on the art show, yeah.
I was gonna say, like, if I saw someone walking out with artwork, I mean, I'm a pretty big guy, and I would probably have to go fisticuffs with this guy. I don't know if I used that right. Also, I got a lot of artist friends that seem crazy as hell, and not the stereotypical. I don't know why that sounds wrong.
Stereotypical.
That's why.
Josh is sick.
Stereotypical. Yeah, my brain's half on. Idea of what an artist is.
I think, well,
Most people probably think the guys are manorexic and made of sponge. But that's not true.
Didn't Edina say that somebody stole pieces from her gallery? I know that people have stolen like clothes and stuff, but I have a feeling that someone stole like paintings from her as well.
I don't know. I don't remember that.
A couple of years ago.
It's entirely possible.
Yeah, I mean, but the problem is who are you going to sell that to, and like, what's the reason?
Yeah, why would you steal? Yeah,
I don't know. Like, this guy's saying he's scanning them and selling prints.
Yeah,
it's like highly unlikely. I mean,
right? Yeah, who's he selling them to? Is he shipping them out somewhere else, or else everybody in Nashville would? Yeah,
under a different name, and they're selling it under a different name.
Highly doubt it.
Yeah,
it doesn't make much sense.
It's not easy to sell prints on Instagram in general
if you're the artist,
let alone if you just started a random page to sell prints. I don't think it's going to work that well.
Plus, it's work to sell prints, so you stole something to work towards selling.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I'm going to steal this so I can go work.
Yeah,
it's just kind of silly.
Yeah.
He might have just been a troll, trying to get attention.
I stole this shovel. Now I'm digging huge holes.
Yeah,
cool. Now I'm mowing people's. I stole this lawnmower. Now I'm mowing people's lawn for $10.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't you steal a car?
I stole this artwork so I can start a very small, unprofitable business.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah, that guy doesn't seem like the smartest.
Is going to teach you something.
Yeah.
Because
I
hear this story a lot where it's like, I went to art school and they were like, just paint whatever you want. You're like, no, fucking teach me something. like push me to like past where I'm at. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
And you hear that a lot with art schools where they're kind of okay with you just go and explore, kids. It's like they're like taking you to a playground and then making you you're off and playing and at the same time they're charging you a ton of money. And it's like that's why I think I suggested like, oh, go check out like some ateliers because you're going to get like this regiment, like you're going to learn how to fucking paint. When by the time you leave this place, you're going to know how to paint at the least.
You know, there's a double-edged sword there though, because at this point, I mean, going out and exploring is like that's really what it's about. And I know people have come up to me and said, these are people who are great, really, very articulate painters. Mm-hmm. And you see those people and you hear from them, they're like, I wish I could loosen up. Mm-hmm. I wish I could, people trying to unlearn what they learned.
But see, to me, I think that that's just their nature. Because
possibly,
for me, I paint. Whenever I paint, I want to loosen up, but and in some ways I do. But I think I just the older I get, the more I'm like, it's in my nature to do this, and I'm not going to resist that.
Right. That's important. That's important.
And even but I think that's different from the artist being a free exploring and pursuing different avenues. I think that is in most artists' nature, just to kind of go down these rabbit holes and explore things. And I think an art school should really focus on honing the craftsmanship and the skill, and then the artist, if they are prone to exploring or whatever, they'll do it. If they're prone to loosening up their paintings, but even if you force them to paint tight, no matter what, they're going to end up loosening up.
Yeah.
Habit.
Yes, I agree.
But I really find it. I think it's sad when you hear about art schools not teaching them how to paint. They're like, I came out of art school and I didn't learn anything. It's like, oh God, because you gain so much debt from it, or it costs you a ton of money.
Yeah, I mean, in my situation, I had started so early that I spent a long time trying to understand how to think like an artist.
Right.
So a lot of at least the beginning, undergrad art school is going to be teaching you how to sort of do that. But if you're already at the point where you are already obsessed with it, it's kind of like I said, if it was a different kind of program, who knows? I would have had a completely different experience. You come up with a hypothesis, like you said the other day. I think we just had a little interaction on Instagram where you had a goal for a piece. You were trying to create a certain kind of thing, and I think we all. So there's you have this theory, and then you're testing it out in the studio, and those people who take their work the furthest are actually recording. Like you're saying, you got your notebooks. It's amazing how. When I look at artists that I really think they're doing something, how methodically they record these things. It's a very scientific, serious process for people. And that's that obsession. That's the religion of it, where you're always in that headspace.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's not, and that's the thing, like you were talking about the ideas, the romance we have around the painter, where it's just like, oh yeah, this is wild and crazy. Well, yeah, that might be true, but it's a very in-depth, methodical process of what goes on behind this stuff.
Oh, for sure.
It's not just, I feel like painting. There's a definite drive to understand.
So as far as the process telling the story, or I don't know, I can't remember how you worded that.
I can give you an example actually. From
that's what I wanted to meet. What I wanted to ask.
Well, I think somebody kind of goes into asking questions about the actual paintings, but I think somebody asked why do you choose to paint the way that you do rather than having a more refined sort of. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I read it.
Constructed approach. Why you go through that rather than a sort of soft, more classical blended approach.
Right, right. And that goes into what I've been thinking about for years, and just about the history of, we used to make paintings because we didn't have cameras.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then we had cameras, and then we made paintings that didn't look like paintings anymore.
Right.
We made paintings that were you take a blank canvas and you throw a knife at it, and you just made some paintings. So and we had postmodernism, and we had all these things, and so for me, when I really break down what painting is, painting is a record of 1,000 moments and 1,000 decisions.
Yeah.
And that's what painters do, is you sit there and you think and you make a decision, and then you make another decision, and you make another decision. And we all have that feeling. Everybody that paints understands that the work takes over at a certain point. Mm-hmm. Like, you begin with an idea, but like you were saying, Josh, like there's a point where you may not, your hands aren't really, it's not really your idea anymore because you're reacting. You're making decisions based upon what you did before, So
I don't know if I said that, but if I did, I sound hella smart.
But so that's what a painting, people used to try to make paintings, or people still do. One way of making a painting is to try to capture a moment in time. Mm-hmm. Like the light that shone off.
Plein air paintings.
Yeah, plein air painting is like that. But I mean, do you make a plein air painting in like 2 seconds, or does it take you like a couple hours?
Right.
So what you did is you made a painting that was an amalgamation of a million minutes in there. You know what I mean? Like it was, but you made this, you tried to capture those things that were the most powerful elements, A camera can't really do that.
Right. I mean,
so mostly what I'm trying to do is make paintings that don't necessarily capture a moment in time, but they show a spectrum of possibility. So I like to look at paintings that are not done yet.
I do too.
And I remember always thinking
we've been talking about this.
It's the visibility of those decisions where I've always been really into like calligraphy. I like it when the decisions are visible.
Right.
Where, you can take a little tiny brush and you can spend 1,000 hours and you can, make this thing. And like, but I like it when the painting, the brush, the mark making, to me is really, that's why I paint, because it's primitive. But it's and you make this mark and then you have to deal with it. It's like a sword, and it's visible, it's direct, it's articulate, and it might be a bad decision, but it's there. And I start to feel a little weird when I start to fiddle with the painting too much. Like when I start to get all.
See, this is one of those things where I don't disagree with you. I just have a different approach.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like
absolutely.
So
Totally.
for me, it's like I love to fiddle with my paintings.
Yeah,
that sounds dirty. But I also really enjoy unfinished paintings. But I also like when an unfinished painting has like a really focused and rendered point to it. It's almost like I get a peek of like what the finished product looked like and what it took to get there.
Yeah.
All in one shot,
Yeah, exactly. I saw Cecily Brown, the painter. She said at one point that she said, if I make a painting that is if there's no object, if it's just completely kind of non-representational, if it goes that way, then it just becomes paint. And it doesn't have a certain kind of humanity in it. But if the painting goes the other way and it becomes so much about the object that the paint disappears, it becomes not painting anymore.
I see what you mean.
And that's kind of I walk that line too, where if I start to get really obsessed in a work with this shoulder has to look just that way, or this needs to be I will intentionally pull away from that rigidity, because I'm not trying to isolate like in that way.
Do you think that applies to the concept as well?
It does. It absolutely. I mean, that's what it's about. there's a disassociative kind of theme in my work. You know, people who feel out of sorts or are non-defined, or kind of when you come into altered states, ecstatic states or contemplative states, where you have a kind of disassociation with your body, or you know, I like the idea of psychedelia without the sort of trope of what people think of as psychedelic art.
Yeah.
I'm interested in the transformative experiences of coming into contact with things that you don't understand. You know, sort of body disassociation, things like, I'm really interested in that transformational kind of like quality. So to me, these things feel like an abstraction. They feel like there's only certain times where your body is important to you. But when you're not thinking about being in a body, like, where are you? And capturing this in, I believe that painting and the primitiveness of the mark making, there's a way to kind of capture that feeling. And that's what I search for. To answer the question is, I don't care about as much of what I look for in the finishing of a painting is when I feel, this sounds really woo-woo, but like when the vibe is right, then I know it.
Yeah.
And there's all those millions of things that
By the way, that sounded woo-woo.
I know. I'm a little woo-woo. But,
And I said, like, that was so obvious, even at a small level, that was a form of manipulation. Like, just being able to zoom in on it was that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's just
Sergio,
tough.
I appreciate you being vocal in your plein air little dynamic or whatever, like your little group is, because too much people in the art world be not vocal.
Yeah, that's true.
They keep their mouth shut about shit they don't like, or people be acting up. Like I heard you guys in your previous podcast talking about this fool from White Walls. You know, I would hear stories about this motherfucker for a while.
Yeah. Perfect.
He did this, he did that. You know, from friends of mine, even he owes me money. He owes me money.
He was like,
dude.
Well, city of San
why
Francisco
don't you
money.
just go fucking get your money? Even if you don't pick up your money,
right?
You could go approach this fool. People, I don't know why they were so scared to talk up. One time I was with a friend of mine who he always pronounced her name wrong. And this idiot's name was Justin. The first and only time I ever met him face to face. We saw him. We were going into a foreign cinema, this restaurant, this brunch restaurant in San Francisco. So we're on our way in. This guy's out front having a drink. We walk up. He pronounces her name wrong. She introduces me, and I'm like,
the owner of White Walls you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
His name was Justin, right? So
I don't know.
Justin,
I've only met one.
so when I meet him, I'm like, he pronounced her name wrong. So right away when I met him, I'm like, it's nice to meet you, Justine. And he looked at me all crooked. And this fool thought he was like, you know, on like the top of the world type shit. I mean, nothing to me.
Yeah.
I slapped the brakes off this motherfucker. Like so he just looked at me kind of sideways a bit. That was that. I never had any personal interaction with him. But I had friends of mine that owed money by him. I say, just say the word. The next opening this fool has, I'll go in, take 2 paintings off the wall and walk out. And I'll hold these paintings at my house and say, now you have an issue with the painter. Now you have an issue with me. And you have an issue with someone else that you owe money to. I'm not going to mention names for this current gallery owners in San Francisco, but it's some same shit going on right now. Same thing. Where I have gallery owners owing friends of mine money, and the friends of mine are like sweet girls, you know, like not edgy type girls.
Right.
I'm like, you're trying to get over on the people you know you can.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So I tell these friends of mine, give me the word. Motherfucker's not going to owe you that much money anymore. If he owes you money still, he's going to be owing now money for the paintings off his gallery wall during the opening. I'll walk in that bitch. I'll take 4 paintings off the wall and walk out.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not down for that type of behavior.
Yeah. there is this like shitty thing that happens where artists, I think it's because of artist reputation, but they get this like they just get taken advantage of.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that's why I enjoy working with galleries they're just businesses on point.
Yeah,
that to me is like, if I try to work with you once and shit goes like a little where I gotta ask for money or whatever, then I'm like, all right, I'm not working with you ever again. Yeah,
it's even harder when you're dealing with a gallery that's not in your area too.
Yeah, but and I'm like a big fucking guy, I think people just need to have.
I've
more.
never had a gallery mess with me at all, money wise, work wise, anything.
Yeah, fortunately, I haven't either.
Yeah,
hasn't happened to me yet.
Maybe I am worried if they do.
You posted on your social media, I don't know how long ago this was, but you were in the hospital and it looked like you got pretty badly hurt.
I definitely got more than a splinter. So I was hanging out with a buddy of mine. This was December 3rd. I feel like I'm like, where were you on the night of December 3rd? It's like, so it was December 3rd. I was hanging out close to where I live in the Upper Haight in San Francisco. And I was meeting with a buddy real quick. He's a good friend of mine, but he's also my, everyone needs that computer friend.
Right.
That's like, have you tried restarting your computer?
Right. Yeah.
Everyone needs one of those guys.
That's my brother, Bailey, by the way.
Is the TV plugged in?
Yeah. They always make you feel stupid, too. They're like, oh, dude, try this. You're like, what is that?
Yeah, no, I can draw crazy shit, but I can't, like, download a fucking file.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm, like, meet up with this guy. So I got a scanner. And this is the kind of stuff, this is like the kind of shit artists get excited about. I got an 11x17 scanner, and I'm like, oh my god, oh my god. And
they're all like 9x12 or whatever. Right?
I know, dude.
Yeah,
I would have to like.
Why is an 11x17 scanner so much more expensive than 9x12?
I know. And then I meet up with my buddy. He's like, oh, okay, like let's have a drink. We'll talk about it. Let me know what you got and this and that, and we'll talk about it. I'm like, all right, cool. So I go there and I meet up with him. I'm like, oh, this is the scanner I got. Like, this is what it is. And he knows all of his computer stuff. And I'm like, all right, cool. And we agreed. It's like, okay, he can come by tomorrow, so to speak, to, hook it up. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up like, he's like, oh, I'm over, let's have a drink and, we'll talk about it. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I go over, have a couple of beers with him, and it's like, all right, let's do this tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon. He's like, all right, cool, I'll be there like 1 o'clock or something. I'm like, all right, perfect. So I leave, and it's like, we're talking like 7:30 in the evening. Like, it is not late. I mean, I know it's getting darker earlier, but it's like people are still coming home, going to dinner.
Right.
And so I leave like, all happy-go-lucky, and I'm walking down the street, and like the last thing I remember is like saying goodbye to my friend, like, hugging him and his wife, and like, all right, I'll see you tomorrow. Sounds great. Can't wait. I'm skipping back because it's like, ooh, gonna have a scanner, 11x17.
Yeah.
Got my Bentley. So I leave, and I'm walking down the street, and if anyone knows San Francisco, I was on Haight and Schrader, and I'm walking back home.
And Haight's a pretty well-known street. I mean,
yeah,
even if you're not from San Francisco,
Haight-Ashbury is like
Haight
Central. Yeah,
you might know Haight, and it's pretty close to the Golden Gate Park. Just to give you guys an idea of where you're at.
I mean, there's people, tourists. There's a police station right there. There's people everywhere.
Yeah,
and so I'm walking back, and it's like I don't remember anything. So I remember everything was black. Like I couldn't see anything. I was all blacked out. I'm like gurgling blood. And I heard a voice that said, like, do you need help? And I don't know what happened, but I was like, yes. And then the next memory I have was, of course, I couldn't. So
this is you leaving your house?
No, I'm leaving, like, I had a drink with my buddy, like, okay, we're going to do the scanner. So I'm going back home.
He lives on Haight Street, the buddy? Or?
Oh, no, it was just kind of a pub that we go to.
Oh, okay.
So then I was walking home, which is like a 5-minute walk away.
Right.
And it's 7:30. It's not late.
Yeah.
No.
And I'm not toasty. I'm just kind of like, all right, I told him, my buddy, I was like, oh, I have to go home. I got to make dinner and I got some work to do. And he's like, okay, cool. I'll see you tomorrow. And I leave, and you know, I'm probably, it's like 3 minutes later, like I just left, and I'm like on the sidewalk, like gurgling blood and stuff on the ground. So I believe what happened was I was walking down the street and someone hit me in the back of the head with a skateboard.
Holy shit.
And then, you know, 8'11" or whatever I am, like falls forward.
Yeah, 8'11".
Straight on my face.
Wow.
So my face just explodes on the sidewalk. And then, so after that, like my next memory is I heard a voice that said, you're in a CAT scan, don't move.
Wow.
Shit.
And I was like, all right, I'm still...
And you're like, did you take out my earring?
Dude, they took out my earrings and I had to fucking buy new ones.
Oh,
like I had to
really?
buy 2 of them. Yeah. That shit cost me $12. That's real. And so, yeah, I actually didn't get my earrings back.
If you learn anything from this podcast, $12 is a lot for an artist.
Yeah,
Fuck yeah.
that's like 2 tall boys at a bar. Like that's a lot. So and then my next memory is I wake up and there's these, you know, there's 2 police officers and like 3, you know, doctors, nurses, what have you. And, you know, the police start taking photos of me. Like, so they take photos of me, like, there's nothing defensive. I was hit in the back of the head. I had a big lump. I ended up with a huge lump on the back of my head, a concussion, broken nose,
Holy shit.
facial fractures, 2 black eyes, blood on the eye, puncture wounds, all this shit. So I think what happened was he hit me with a skateboard, and then when I'm down, completely fucking out of it, he hit me, I believe, in the side, like in my stomach, because I had like these real weird circular marks, which was kind of like the same size as like the nuts and bolts on like a...
Oh, sure, yeah. On the trucks.
Because like I met with a sergeant, and he's like, you know, I showed him all the wounds, and he's like, oh, those look kind of suspicious or something. He's like, I've smashed a lot of people with batons. I was like, oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
It's fucking good to know.
Dark information, yeah.
He's like, oh, those are kind of resemble when I smash the shit out of people with a fucking baton. I'm like, okay.
That's dark.
So I kind of like reverse engineered, I believe, how it happened. And then, so I wake up and there's these, you know, doctors and police officers, and they start taking photos of me, and I'm, you know, still kind of completely out of it. Mm-hmm. And, so, you know, they're taking photos. They're like, this is what happened. This is what happened to you. You know, you got a concussion, this, that, the other thing. And I'm like, fucking great. All right.
Fuck.
And I kept saying, I was like, oh, I don't have, you know, another thing that most artists don't have is called health insurance.
I think I've heard of it.
Yeah. Let's not go down that road. But so no health insurance. It's like, you know, sometimes you gotta just do what you gotta do. And
Yeah. I pulled out a tooth by myself once because I had no dental because I was a full-time artist at the time.
How long ago was this?
oh, I saw that movie Castaway. That was fucking rad. Did you use this ice skate?
I tried to use a butter knife at first and just fucking do one of these.
Jesus.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then that didn't work, and then I used the old pair of pliers.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I also got like an infection before I did that, and I cut the cyst open myself, and then gargled peroxide for like 3 days,
That's crazy.
and I'm still alive. So
No, I mean, it kind of makes you, it's kind of like that Van Gogh ear thing, but different. It's
Yeah.
kind of cool, you know,
Yeah.
gangster.
yeah, I should start painting pictures of me with like obvious tooth missing.
Oh, yeah, dude. Believe me, your followers will jump.
yeah.
Artists are very DIY, so it makes sense to me.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I wake up and, you know, like I see them, they take photos and everything, the police officers, and I, you know, then they end up taking off, you know, kind of like, okay, well, just sit here and like, we'll let you just incubate and just fucking sit and let the money stack up.
Mm-hmm.
And then at another point, I end up kind of blacking back out, and I woke up and no one's around. I'm in this room by myself, and I still kind of like, the fuck happened? Mm-hmm. And so I had like a neck brace and all these like, you know, I mean, I looked like Wolverine and Weapon X. I was like all these like cords and shit.
Yeah, if you guys want a better view of it, he posted a picture on his Instagram. So check out Nate's
looks
Instagram.
gnarly. Yeah.
Well, no, it's like if you're gonna get fucked up, it's like you want to have proof of it. You know?
If you're gonna get attacked by a shark, you hope he bites more than your pinky.
Be honest. Did you fuck with the filters on Instagram to make yourself look worse?
I actually no. It's all the blood is just a filter. It's like a
Yeah.
But no, so I woke up. I woke up at another point, and I was like, no one's in the room. And I'm like, fuck this. And I start ripping off the neck brace, and I pull all the cords off, like all crazy style. And I'm in my boxers, and so I start wandering like the hall completely, like bumper bowling, like just going off the walls. And like some security guards look at me. I was like, well, how the fuck I get out of here? And he's looking at me like, that way. And then he's like pushing the red button, like, help. We got this like giant Sasquatch like wandering the fucking thing in his underwear. And so, and like, shit, I might regret this, but it's like a lot of times when you, like, when you get fucked up like this, you lose some body functions. So
stuff.
Like doo-doo stuff.
Okay.
So we got some like doo-doo in the mix.
We should have said, girls, plug your ears. You don't care if the guys hear it.
Oh my god, I'm just like, everyone's gonna be horrified of me now. So I'm wandering around, and then they corral me back into the room, and they're like, you shouldn't leave, but we can't keep you here. And I was like, well, fuck it. I'm screaming like, I don't have health insurance, like blah blah blah, like I'm freaked out. And I mean, the bill, like the way these bills come out, you can't even count that fast. If you're like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like that's basically how it racks up. And so I was like, well, I'm fucking out of here. And they're like, okay, well, you can't leave like that. And so they hand me these like scrubs that like these like bright blue pants that are like 6 inches too short, and this tiny little red polo. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna put these on. And it was like, in a moment like this, you don't give a shit. So I was just like, there's like a female officer, there's like female nurse. I just ripped my boxers down and like put on these little, these little Oshkosh bagosh kind of fucking, scrubs and shit. And I'm like, I'm fucking out of here. And they're like, oh, and here's a clear plastic bag of all of your like your possessions. And so I just got this clear plastic bag, which is like, it's kind of like those like, remember like that years
when
ago,
you come out of prison kind of bags.
Well, I didn't even have a bracelet, but no, when remember years ago they had like that fad where it's like a clear plastic backpack. It's like, hey, here's all your shit. Like, oh, do you sell weed? It's like, no. Well, I see it right there. So it's like, I've got these like bloody clothes, and I'm like, did they steal everything? They're like, yeah, they took everything. I'm like, fuck, okay. So at this point, I don't have a wallet. I don't have a cell phone. I don't have anything. So I'm like, well, I'm fucking out of here. We're over at my studio right now, and it's like the hospital is like right up the street that I went to. And thank you, Zuckerberg. And so I was like, all right, I know where I'm at. I'm still kind of out of it and all that. And I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to fucking walk home. So I look like I just like got in a fight with Shaq, and I'm like walking home. And people are like, seriously, like.
To be fair, I feel like since you're 8'11", you'd beat the shit out of Shaq. So Shaq, look out.
He's old too now,
Yeah, I mean, young Shaq might be a fight, but.
Oh yeah.
Worse than if Shaq attacked you.
Oh yeah, no, it was a definitely a Shaq attack. And so I'm like, all right, well, I'll just Kazam, man. I just. Wow, that was good.
That's classic.
So I ended up like, I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna walk home, and I'm shoveling down the street. I look like my face.
How far are you from home at this point?
So like
5 miles, right?
This is like 5 miles.
Damn.
So I've got this.
They didn't give you a bus pass or anything.
I know, like in prison they do that.
They do.
Seriously.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
No, they give you a bill, is what they do.
Yeah.
So I fucking leave, and I start walking back, and I probably made it about 3 miles or more, and then I ran into someone I knew, and they're like, "The fuck happened?" And they're like, "All right, I'm gonna get you on the train so I can go up and get closer to home."
Right.
And so I was like, I don't have any money. They're like, get the fuck on the train. So I'm like sitting on the train. People are looking at me like I'm a leper. Like they like don't want to contact. They don't want to get what I've got. They're avoiding the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And so I get off at the stop, and I go back, and I go back to, I have no concept of what time it is or anything like that. So I'm like, I don't know. I mean, believe it or not, I didn't even know. I think they asked me who the president was, and I didn't even know that. But somehow, like a strayed dog that travels 20 miles back home, like somehow I had that GPS in my head. So I go back and
well, maybe you just didn't know the president because you just blocked that out. I mean, I don't know if I can't.
You refuse to acknowledge it.
Kardashian.
They were like close enough. All right, next.
No kidding.
So I get back and I was like, at this point, I thought he stole my keys as well for whatever reason, because they're like, oh, he stole everything. So I'm like, okay, well, that's wallet, cell phone, and keys.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go back. And I really mean, like, preface this was like, I was not shit-faced or anything. I was not drunk. I was just, I got attacked. But I go back to the bar, and, like, these people had just seen me, like, 3 hours before.
Right.
And I walk in. They didn't even recognize me. They're like,
holy shit.
I walk in and I go,
like, sir,
the
exit's that way.
Yeah. And even though I definitely stand out, like I went to the bathroom, like just directly to the bathroom, and everyone looked at everyone like, oh God, we got to take care of this guy. We got to kick this guy out somehow.
Right.
And then I come back out of the bathroom and they're like, Nate? And I'm like, I need a drink. And they end up getting back home, and it wasn't even that late. So I left at like 7:30. I was back there at like 10 o'clock. So I was there. I wasn't even at the hospital that long.
Wow.
And so I come back in, and these people had just seen me like totally cool and just walking straight, and now I look like fucking Meatloaf.
Not the singer, but like actual
loaf of meat. Yeah.
And a friend of mine ended up walking me back to my place because I live really close by, and at this point I still didn't think I had my keys, so I buzzed the door. It's like 10:30 or something at night. And my roommate is like, hello? Because, he's not expecting, like, Chinese food or anything.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, it's Nate. So I go back up. He buzzes me, and I go up. And he opens the door, and he looks at my attire, which looks like fucking a joke. And he's like, he's like making a joke, and then he sees my face, and he's like, whoa, shit.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, he thought you were wearing board shorts. What are those? Capri pants?
Yeah. Meanwhile, I look like that Cher movie Mask. Like, I'm just like, what the fuck is that?
You look like Rocky Dennis.
Yeah. Ooh, you got it. Yeah. You know that one. But I end up, going back, and it was, it was one of those things. It's like, you just got attacked. And the crazy thing is, like, being a big guy and all this, it's like,
yeah, that was my first thought when I first saw it. I was like, could they pick a bigger fucking person?
I know. It's like,
what the fuck? Yeah.
I got this little pickaxe. Oh, there's a redwood tree I'm gonna fucking take out.
Yeah.
But like, if that guy didn't knock me down on that, like, unexpectedly, I would have like Hulk smashed him to fucking pieces.
That's what I didn't get. I'm like, why would you pick a big person? Because if you fail,
easy
then you
target
lose.
Then you're really fucked.
Yeah.
Imagine if that, like, it was like a dink, and then it was like,
yeah, just like, what was that?
that hurt. That tickled.
Yeah. Like my pinky toe. yeah. Andre the Giant, that pitch.
But it's. I think like talking to some of my friends. It was like, I've talked to multiple friends about it, and they're like the breakdown is like, it almost becomes like a personal fear, because it's like, if they can chop you down, we're all fucked. So it's like everyone like they show concern for me, and then it immediately goes to themselves. They're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. For sure, that would make total sense. I mean, I'm still fearless because I'm another giant man, but in not hot ways. But all you little fellas,
oh my God,
beware.
No,
why do you think I avoid conflict?
Yeah.
I was young enough that I thought, well, I'll figure out a way to make it work. But
right.
When I got there, I found out that that probably wasn't the smartest way to go about it. So, so I borrowed some money from a friend. I think I borrowed maybe $400 or $500. So I had like $800 total. And so I found this place. So the dude was in the room, I think, for maybe $400, and he just let me do first, last, and no deposit. And so, so it was kind of like a little circus house. We had the recovering heroin addict who used to rob banks, and he just got out of prison. There was an elderly woman whose husband after she'd raised the kids, basically married his mistress and shipped her off from the Philippines out here. And she was cleaning airplanes at the airport at night, and she was super depressed. She had a refrigerator in her room, which was like her most prized possession. And there was another girl who had just gotten out of an abusive relationship, and she didn't want to talk to anybody. She was just sort of like hiding from all the roommates.
Some shell shock.
It was, yeah, it was kind of weird. And then the last dude was this hairdresser, and he had a fucking wolf, man. I mean, I'm telling you, this was a huge wolf.
Wow.
And he would keep it inside the house all the time. The wolf never went outside.
Just like feeding them a whole deer. And
yeah, it was the dog would take like horse-sized shits on the rug, and he would just leave it there for like a day or two, you know. So when you walked in the house, the stench was overwhelming. And so I would just get home and I would just like beeline it to my room, close the door, lock it, you know. The only really person there that I got along with was the ex-con. And he was cool until like right around the time I started leaving, he started falling off the wagon. So I don't imagine anything good came from that. But so anyway, so one night I came home from work and I went to my room. My wife was coming over later that evening. And, you know, I was kind of...
At the time, your girlfriend?
At the time, my girlfriend, exactly. And I ate a bunch of mushrooms because I was just trying to like kill time. And
mushrooms as in like portobellos? Or?
Yeah, exactly. No, psilocybin. Yeah, I ate a bunch. I ate a bunch of shrooms, and I was just sort of tripping in my room by myself, and kind of having a bit of an uneventful trip. And my wife showed up, my girlfriend, and she had a friend who was a first grade teacher, and so she had these kids, like little kids books, picture books with her. And I was tripping. I started like flipping through these picture books, and I had this epiphany while I was tripping, like, I have to do this, you know, I have to make one of these. Because the other thing was I really liked writing. That I was really into writing. For a long time, I wanted to be a novelist or a poet. You know, I really thought that was basically the career that I was going to end up with. But so when I saw the picture book, you know, I thought, man, I like write poetry all the time. Like I could write a kid's story easy, you know. And so I went on with my trip. You know, I went to sleep that night. I woke up in the next morning, and I just immediately sat down and basically, I mean, the best way I could say it is I just channeled this story, which I came out of the shroom hangover or whatever. I mean, it just like appeared, and it was a really good story. You know, I started showing it to people, friends and stuff, and people were blown away. They were like, wow, you wrote this? This is incredible. And so I started shopping it around. I made some little rudimentary illustrations, you know, with my rudimentary art skills, just some little simple line drawings. And I started shopping my manuscript around, and lo and behold, like a year or two later, it got published.
And not to do a big American bashing thing, but I think you're right. I think there is this whole, I think it's a big stew of things that adds to this entitlement. And I definitely think social media is part of it.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a huge part of it.
Yeah, we're addicted to that thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hold on. I gotta check my phone.
Yeah.
I just got some likes.
Someone shared my photo. Yeah, that's funny. The algorithm whole thing is definitely an obsession.
It's insane.
It's like you trying to crack. I don't know. It's like a game, kind of, but like a game I hate to play, but I play.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing about it. Like, and especially since there was all that news about they changed the algorithm this year and this and that. Mm-hmm. I have a couple friends who are in the tech industry I've been talking with lately. There's absolutely no such thing as a hack. There's no way to beat it. There's nothing, because it's a self-learning program, and it learns the way you operate. So it's impossible to have any type of hack. So the whole thing about like posting at a certain time of day, anything, it's BS. There's nothing you can do.
It reminds me of that movie, The Beautiful Mind, where like, like he's solving this problem, and at the end it's like, oh, he's just crazy.
He's just nuts.
Yeah. It's like me and the fucking on the window just writing like the algorithm.
And then you just lose your mind trying to figure it out.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about it.
Except for if you can take a really nice ass shot, like my ass looks good in a thong, so my likes will go up pretty soon, and my followers will skyrocket.
Isn't that funny? We can create this. We can put a car in outer space, and we can create something like Instagram, but still the thing that gets the most attention is a butt and a thong.
Yeah. It speaks about
sad. It's the primitive brain.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. Whatever.
He's like, what's wrong with that?
I mean, I get it. I don't really go for that, but I mean, whatever. I always try to think of like the people that are like, I got a buddy, you know, he works and he lives like a normal life, and that's his like gig, you know. He's always following like girls in thongs and stuff. And I'm like, I mean, kind of makes sense. I mean, what is he? He's not going to put a space in car, you know, or a car in space, and he's not going to. He's just like, yeah, well, at least I got butt cheeks to look at.
Yeah, I guess everybody's got a different road in life.
Yeah, I guess
whatever
so.
gets you by.
Yeah, yeah.
Isn't that sad? And when you think, not sad, it's funny that when you know think about your own Instagram feed, it's just a bunch of painters.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
That's what I look at. Paintings.
I know. It's so funny.
I got a lot of models in my feed too, though. So I get a little dose of both in that way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny when I see someone else's feed and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. People do other stuff on this.
Right.
Yeah, you know, this is actually
It's a bunch of memes too. Everybody.
Oh yeah, memes.
Yeah.
I think that's a good because I've recently, like, I was never that active on Facebook. Well, I go in and out, but lately I've been back on there, and so seeing artists, like, everybody's complaining about not being seen and about the algorithm.
Yeah.
But that's a good thing to do. Is like go to your brother, your sister, mom, dad, whatever, and go on their feed. So you get an idea of what normal people look like.
Yeah.
Like every artist thinks that like we think like we're the only thing on Instagram. Like everybody should be looking at my paintings.
Yeah.
Like no, people look at memes of cats.
Yeah.
That's the most popular thing.
That or everybody on there spouting their political whatever side they're on.
Oh
just
yeah.
resharing.
Yeah.
The
And
latest
if you
news.
want to be the artist that's seen, just start paying super detailed eyeballs.
That's true. Or draw in charcoal.
If you're that mad,
Oh, I just spit out my water. That was funny.
spit take. Yeah, it's like there's no algorithm secret, just paint eyeballs.
Just eyeballs.
Yeah. And I noticed that on your story the other day, you wrote like, I think this one is finished, and I just like love that idea of like, because I always have it too, where I'm like, I think I'm done, but I'll like sit on it, and sometimes something will come up, and I'm like, oh, I know exactly what I need to do.
Yeah. It'll be like one mark.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and I'm like so stoked about that one thing too.
Yeah.
Usually,
Yeah, it's usually your favorite thing
Yeah.
that nobody else notices.
nobody. And I was like, when I saw you said like, I think I'm done with this, I was like, oh, that's awesome, because I always feel that way.
Yeah, I like to approach it like that.
Yeah. I have a painting right now where it's like 99% finished, but it might be finished. I just have no idea, and I'm waiting till the rest of the paintings for this group of paintings is done, and then I'm like, if at the end I'm like, yeah, it's still done, then it'll be done. But I have a feeling there's something haven't thought about yet.
Yeah, you never know. Cool. It might be finished, and it just takes time. Or it's just one mark.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So how did that start? Was it like some big epiphany, or did you just start
Oh man, how much time do we have? It's such a long, boring story.
Plenty of time.
It how did it start? Like, I did that series with the comic books, and then I did another series after that with gas masks.
Yeah, and like little kids and stuff.
I remember that.
Yeah, and then it was after that, like, I don't know, I just got really kind of depressed for a bit, like, about the work, because I just wasn't happy about it. And so I kind of went on this long road of thinking, and I had to, like, erase in my head, like, everything that I thought about artwork and all these preconceptions, and kind of go down to the bare bones of, like, what I like first. And then it came down to cave art. I don't know why. I love cave art. It's my favorite art on the planet.
Huh.
And so I kind of started from there and then worked forward. And then somehow I came... Oh, no, that's what it was. What I realized is, like, because I couldn't figure out, like, what... So was my motivator for making art, because everybody's just so different.
Right. So the cave art specifically, was that, do you, because like for me, I'm also kind of obsessed with the cave art, but it's almost just like the fact that we can kind of stand in a human being's foot and like experience, like almost put yourself in their place, you know, like, like it's like you're standing there and you're like, why the fuck would he create art? He has these saber-toothed tigers.
That was exactly it. It was like, why, of all the things that you had to do at that time and how scarce food was,
right?
Your life was literally always on the line.
Yeah.
And then you see some of these caves, like how they had to crawl through. And so that's what got me hooked. And then for me, one day it just hit me as like, because that's being human.
Right.
And it's as simple as that. There's no big secret.
For
It's
sure.
Making art is part and parcel to being human.
Yeah, exactly.
And that kind of kick-started me, as like got me excited about art again. And it's weird because that's kind of been my motivator for making art since then. Isn't because this thing like I have to, or I love colors, or I love landscape. It's that I'm just curious why we even do it.
Right.
So that's why I do it. And that got me into it was Xiao Ming, actually. It was something. Then I started going through all these things, like just filtering through everything I've learned and read. And then it was one teacher had told us, he's like, he asked it as a question. It was like a very Zen thing of like, why do you think all the great artwork is figurative? And, we were supposed to debate it. I didn't say anything. But I just thought about that. I'm like, why is it? Like, and what's the most, like, the thing that we're most obsessed with? And it's portraits. It's busts. And it could be for a myriad of reasons. It's an egotistical thing. It's a political thing. It's a beauty thing.
Right.
So that's where, like, that all came together. But I didn't want to do portraiture, like things that were recognizable. And so here's a weird disconnect, like a connect that seems so far away. But then I saw this documentary. I always recommend it to everybody. It's called How Art Made the World. And there's a snippet of this. I think he's a type of neurosurgeon. He works with amputees because he studies phantom limb syndrome.
Oh, okay.
It seems so unrelated, but his name's V.S. Ramachandran. And so he's also like on the side, he's an art lover. So he started studying the psychology of art. And so, God, it's such a long story. Bear with me.
This is awesome. I'm really enjoying this.
He found this study in the 50s, right? That there's a what the hell type of bird is it? I think like a pelican or something. They're called a red stripe pelican. And on their beak, they have a single red stripe. So, but they didn't know what the red stripe was for. So they, one scientist noticed that one of the chicks was pecking on this red stripe on the mother, and the mother then would feed it. So they're like, wait, is this like a hunger thing? So they took a popsicle stick and they painted red stripes on them, but they would make the stripe bigger and bigger and bigger. And the bigger the stripe, like these chicks would go ape shit over it. Like they put a big red stripe and they're on a yellow popsicle stick and they're like going nuts. Wow. So there was a correlation between that. So he started thinking of that in the terms of abstract art. So he did these studies and of how the brain responds and lights up to abstract, and not just abstract, but like exaggerated art. So even figurative. So when you think of things like mannerism or, any type of religious art, anything that's not photorealistic, that has exaggerated limbs, exaggerated eyes, the brain responds differently to it than it does in like a photorealistic or something like that. So that really got me thinking of like, I started responding more to abstract art. So that was the whole thing that I was putting these two ideas together of like, we respond to portraiture, the human head for whatever reason. Well, we know why. But I wanted to do it in a way where not so much that it's just that you can the least amount of information to know the person, but it's more of the least amount of information to have a reaction to another human head, if that makes any sense. Because I feel like the less you leave out, the more you invite that viewer to come in and bring their story to it. If you put a lot of information, so if I just do a full painting of you, somebody walks up and they go, "Hey, that's Josh. Yeah, I remember Josh. He gave me a beer once." And they have a little story.
A couple of beers. Story.
He got me really drunk once.
That's the Josh I know.
Yeah, but if it's this very faint thing, then there's less information you're giving them. You're giving them more or less like a platform, and then they can come to it and bring their own emotion or their own experience or something to it.
The other thing that happens with artists that's kind of like what you're talking about with comedians. I don't know a million comedians, but I imagine that if in the middle of that group of comedians, there is this other comedian who's a little strange, maybe not as commercially viable, but if you're way into comedy, you're impressed because you're like, no, this is cutting edge.
Right.
That person is safer because he's got all these people around him that be like, maybe the consumer and the buyer right now doesn't totally get this, but we're all into comedy. We all think he's great. We're all going to keep him okay for a while, and if he doesn't become a big thing until he's 60, that's fine,
Right. It's like
what
the
Zach
comedian's
Galifianakis
comedian.
was. Yeah.
Yeah, crazy. Time. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. for sure. I mean, that applies to a lot of art forms.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I know as far as like rap, MF Doom has been like the rapper's rapper, you know.
Oh
Exactly.
yeah.
and it's just because the market or the amount of fans of rap is so huge that he gets to eat. And you know, and I think that applies to artists. Artists definitely have like the artist that you wonder why they're not as successful as they should be. You're like, why doesn't this person have 1 billion followers on Instagram?
Oh, definitely.
They're so good. But it just is what it is. I don't know.
Yeah. Trying to figure it out.
I have not encountered much slice of the pieism on the West Coast at all.
Do you see it more on the East Coast then?
New York is kind of its own animal, and in a lot of ways, New York has this, 20th century tradition. I guess they would tell you abstract expressionism was born there and things like this. It all's kind of a monkey on their back, and their collectors are such a small group of such people that are famous for collecting and things. California has just never been like that for me. I mean, I can say nothing but good things about California. Number one, it's such a good place for painters that there's no place in the country where if you see somebody painting on the side of the road in California, they're probably pretty good. Like, you're like, oh shit, that guy's good. Like, I bet I know him. What's your name? Because you're awesome, like this or whatever. And I don't think, I just feel like the galleries in LA and stuff like that have just operated in a much more transparent kind of open way. I mean, all the ones in LA that are so cool, like Arcadia and Maxwell Alexander and all those things like that, I'm not jealous that I'm not in it. I totally get it because I think what they're picking is super cool. It was only in New York where I saw things and I was like, I'm kind of bummed that I'm not really in a gallery because if these guys can be in it, then there's no reason I shouldn't be. You know? So, and quite a few of those New York galleries I think have moved like towards the West Coast.
Arcadia came from New York.
Yeah. Now they're probably moving for the weather or something, but
Maybe,
but I mean, if I were going to open a gallery tomorrow, I mean, or even a school or something like that, I think Bay Area, LA, I mean, California kind of has a really good. The painters in California, if you look at the list of people that live and paint in California, it's like really good. It's like all my favorite painters live in California,
Oh, really?
So it kind of makes sense. It's a rising tide lifting all boats, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I haven't ever spent any time on the East Coast, but there are pockets of the West Coast that are very inclusive. One of the things that would be nice about making this podcast grow is to kind of make the Bay Area scene a bit more well known outside of it.
Yeah, but there's cool stuff. I mean, if you think I'm giving this from my point of view, because what I have different from your other guests is keeping track and knowing all these different schools, but there's pretty many in San Fran. You have Andy Amaral at Golden Gate Atelier, which is a cool school. That one Baca, you have Justin Hess's school. Like, I mean, there's like
Sadie's Atelier. I forget what it's called.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's just called Sadie Valeria or something like that. But yeah, I mean, there's 4 right there, and San Fran's not huge,
right.
So I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So I guess what you're trying to say is like, if you don't want your galleries all up in your movies, all in your music videos, come to West Coast, Death Row for life. Yeah. I got you.
People from the future probably aren't going to look at paintings done in 2018 of fake old, like the Atelier students, like painting people in Greek robes or whatever. They're going to look at actual historical paintings.
So, I mean, you hit on a super good point about what happens at those schools. On one hand, I totally agree with you. On the other hand, I think it's worth remembering that at those schools, they've chosen to only teach painting, not art.
Yeah.
So we should expect the art to be awful, which it is. It's
I'm not
just
talking especially about the student work.
No, but oh my God.
Learning, but like if you're still doing that 5-10 years after school.
It's naked people in caves with a deep title like this and be like, but you're not even religious. Why'd you make a biblical scene?
Yeah,
be like,
exactly.
I don't know, St. Jerome, he's wrinkly. Like that. So it's a big problem at those schools. They do it. They not only do it in subject matter, they do it in materials too. Because I mean, there's not a red stronger than like burnt sienna in those pictures, and you're sort of like, okay, this is great for the 18th century, but my God, it looks dingy on this chick in Miami's wall. So
right.
You shouldn't joke about Yeezys and those guys though, because let me tell you, in Italy, they're very in touch with the fashion world and all this, and they like it. And painters, we have so much to learn from the world of fashion. Maybe not for good reasons, but there's no more powerful, sophisticated want machine than fashion and like cars and stuff like that. And we have such a hard time as painters. There's nobody, I don't know anybody who's like, oh, I've got some 2016 Judson, but you know, I just heard 2018 Judson is so much better. I gotta get it like this. We have a hard time inspiring interest, desire in what we do, and those guys, man, half the fashion people, they're not even really selling anything like this. What is makeup? It's all the same like this, but they have such a great way of like understanding human psychology and being able to tug. I mean, right now they've turned all of China into fashionistas that just gotta get this stuff, and we only need to harness 1% of that power before all painters' problems go away, and we can all sell our pictures because people are like, oh, you like Sergio's? Yeah, it's pretty cool, but I'm into Judson's and that guy's into Josh's. You know, it's what defines me.
I don't know if I like that though. I mean, it kind of reminds me of like the. Like postmodern guys where they're like all like triangles and they're just selling you like or whatever, like all those whatever fucking era of art that is, that where they're just selling you, I don't know, they're just good salesmen. Yeah And I don't know, there's a lot of that. I feel like that's kind of how the fashion world is, and they got their hustle, I don't mind it, whatever, but I'm like afraid of that more than like, it comes back to the whole idea of like, I would prefer the model that kind of the comedians went, where we all just are like, the good are good, and then and then we all are like, let's work as a fucking team and make sure we all eat. Like that to me is like, the fashion world is such a clusterfuck of like, of huge being great marketers and I don't know. I'm not. I mean, I appreciate the hustle, but I'm afraid of it.
I mean, the intersection of commerce and art is kind of unattractive. We all get there and go, this is not nearly as cool as I thought it was going to be to sell these things and stuff like that. But at the same time, I have two friends that I'm thinking of on the top of my head that make absolutely incredible paintings, whose Instagram photos are so bad, who follow nobody and things like this, and you're like, oh man, you just need like one pinch of one of these fashion dudes, or something.
Well, I can see that too. I mean, I feel like I'm pretty okay at social media, and that definitely helps me. So and there's definitely some artists that you're like, come on, man. And then you have like, I feel like David Cho, he's like a genius at marketing himself, and he is the man he is because of that, I think. In my opinion. I mean, you could blame Facebook money, but I think it's more than that. I think he's just a genius marketer.
I feel like even without Facebook, he would still be making tons of money.
I think so.
I mean, I think isn't Damien Hirst and people like this, isn't that the realm they're working in? They're saying, where is what the fashion people have, and use it to art, for art reasons and stuff.
Yeah, it is, but at the same time, it's like, if that's the road you want to go down, I feel like it's different than painting.
I think my opinion on these things are always the same. I don't like it, I'm not interested in jumping head in, but you can't you should look at it and learn a little bit from it, you know, because I mean, there's definitely some lessons there where it's sort of like, wow, everybody sells jeans, but you know, but like these people are better about it than other people, so
I think so, and I think there is a quality to a good amount of those. You know,
well, that's the other thing. You have two situations: someone who's using nothing but marketing to sell you junk, and then someone who has decent marketing, and then what they turn around and give you is a halfay decent painting. You're sort of like, wow, it was so easy to do a deal with you, and I like the painting.
And I think the fashion people, they have that as well. Like they're, you know, the people that are good at marketing, they also might have a really good product.
Yeah, of course. If you're professional marketer, the best thing you can ever get is a good product. Then you get to go and tell the truth about it instead of lie. Be like, they're good pants, they last, you know.
Then you have like Nike, which is like a piece of shit shoe company.
That's funny,
that they just live off a name. So
that's why I'm a diehard Adidas fan. No Nike.
Yeah, I wear shoes for people with wide feet. I have no choice. So
I wear Reeboks because they're cheap.
To me, money is just an expression of value. You know, money is just an assessment of how much this can be exchanged for. You know, how much is this actually worth? And artists are very much afraid, you know, of coming to terms and finding out that this isn't as much as it isn't valued in actuality to the market as much as it is in their own mind. You know, so and that's reasonable. There are children, you know, but if you want to be a professional at doing this and you want to make a beyond just a habit, you know, you want to make a movement on creating these things, creating these expressions, and then making fair value exchanges for those expressions, you're going to have to come to terms, you know, for what things are actually worth, and then make adjustments, you know, like if this is, you thought this was worth $1,000, but it's only worth $100, you're either going to have to, you're either going to have to make it better, make the value higher, or you're going to have to make more of them. You know, you're gonna have to assess your lifestyle and assess. You know, you're able to make assessments on everything else in your life. You're able to, you know the numbers on how much gas and electricity you're using in your place. You know, you're able to make assessments on how much it costs to live here. You know, I always talk to artists, you know, around here who are talking about their rents going up. You know, and this is in regions all over the country, you know, whether you're in Denver or you're in Philly or you're in Oakland right now, you know, your rent's going up likely in where you are. And the taco truck down the street, you just notice that the tacos are no longer $2. They're now $4.
Right.
You know? Yeah. But artists for some reason cannot at, you know, they haven't started with their work being at that $2 level, you know. They haven't built, you know, like a regular interaction with the value exchange of what they're doing, you know, to recognize that, all right, I need to, you know, prices are going up, you know, but every place, the hardware store, you know, is going to make its adjustments. You know, the restaurant down the street is going to make its adjustments. You know, everybody is pretty in tune with the fact that there's a value exchange going on. And again, you know, like I absolutely believe that culture progress is when there's a healthy vision and value. You know, and as visionaries, like visionaries are just the people that are coming up with crazy ideas and crazy perspectives on what human beings could be doing with their time.
A lot of times you'll talk yourself out of it. You know what I mean? You'll say like, you know, and but
Yeah.
when you kind of allow yourself to take the shot to
Yes.
do, you know, then you really realize that's just kind of what successful people are. They're just the
Yes.
person that
Yeah.
they say, like, I'm just going to do it. I
Yeah.
don't care. And
Yeah.
then they try and they might fail, but then they go, all right, well, I'll try this now. You
Yeah.
know, and they keep trying until something sticks.
And that's the thing is like both of those voices that are in our head, the voice that presents ideas and
Right.
then says, let's do it,
Right.
and the voice that's always talking you out of shit,
Mm-hmm.
they both get practiced,
Mhm.
you know, and it's good to recognize that and avoid talking yourself out of shit.
Right.
You know, like be always on the edge of the next idea that you're saying yes to
Right.
all the time and keep going, you know. And you know, because there's sometimes there's people in your life who maintain the voice of always talking you out of shit,
Right.
you know,
Yeah,
who
for
care,
sure.
who love and care about you, you
Right.
know, and they're like, why are you doing that? Why are you spending money on this equipment?
They're
You know?
called moms.
They're called moms. Yes, I would say 80% of us know exactly what. As I was describing that, they were like, "Yeah, it's my mom."
Yeah.
Because it's my mom too. You know, like, but yeah, sometimes it is somebody who's close to you who loves and cares for you and just
Yeah.
wants you to be in a warm place and fed.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what helps them go to bed at night.
Yeah.
And you're like, I can't create my lifestyle and existence based upon you going to bed and sleeping soundly.
Right.
You know, like I need to go on ahead based upon something that's unexplainable within me. If anything, like I get even more excited. You know, if I look and I see somebody who I think isn't masterful at what they do, but they're killing it and they're making a lot of money doing what they're doing, it makes me like, holy shit, if they can do it,
Right. Yeah.
I just need to see what you know,
Yeah.
what's attached to what they're doing and what their systems are
Yeah.
built
Yeah.
upon, and just go on ahead and dive into that shit. Like I'm hyper optimistic in that way, and I have no desire to live a victimized life and have a role of being a victim in my life and saying that, you know,
Find
as-
an excuse for
exactly
you not succeeding or something like that.
You know what? Life is, you know, that's the unfortunate thing, you know, is life is giving people reasons to fail, valid reasons to accept failure all the time.
Yeah.
And success is basically just kindly, graciously saying no thank you to failure being offered you on a silver platter all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, if you're a person of color, you get that silver platter way more often. If you're a woman, you get that silver platter way more often, you know. And it's just, you have to thank you, no thank you.
So get ready for all Sergio podcast.
Yep.
Yes, finally.
And for the listener, we're doing a drinking game where you can definitely play along, where we're going to take a sip of beer every time Sergio talks. So
Yep.
Blah, 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 blah.
there we go. Chug it.
So make sure you guys have at least half a can of beer.
Yeah, just grab the beer from the night before.
Yeah. You don't need much. Maybe I don't know, but you'll get almost buzzed.
Yeah, just
If you
enough.
played this during the Joshua Mays episode, you left pretty sober.
Yeah.
I think I counted 5 words on that.
Yeah. And we just looked at him like, quiet, Sergio. We're talking here.
Every time he looked like he was going to talk.
Yeah.
I thought for a second that Josh just unplugged his mic and was like, you're done.
Yeah, we just muted him. Sergio said a lot that day, but he was like listening back. He was like, thought I interjected there.
But yeah, like every time I was about to say something, somebody jumped in. So I gotta assert myself
one of the
better.
2 other people in the room.
Yeah.
It was usually Josh. Or, well, yeah, now
dare
both
you.
times it's either Josh, yeah.
Yeah.
How dare you for both of us?
Well, you know, that Joshua Mays just does not shut up.
That's you.
Oh, my God.
That's what I hear.
Yeah. If you look on his Wikipedia page, just all the words.
Yeah.
He wrote it himself.
Yeah, there's just yeah.
Speaking of Josh Mays, though, you started sort of a fake beef with him.
I have a one-sided beef with Joshua Mays. Joshua Mays, if you're listening, I never forgot.
Oh.
And I'll never forgive.
Sounds like
you don't know what you did, but I do.
Oh, it sounds like he forgot.
Yeah, I doubt he remembers who I even am.
We're gonna become Hot 105. What's the one they?
Where they always like trash talk.
What's it? The one in New York?
Yeah, with
Charlemagne
the God. We're just gonna start beef until Birdman shows up at my front door and says, "Keep my name out your mouth."
Yeah, exactly.
Put some respect on it.
Put some respect on it.
Respect on my name. Yeah, no, that started because I moved to Denver for a couple years, and a mutual friend of ours, I guess, he was like, "Oh, you should hit up Joshua Mays, like ask him about the art scene out there, and like get some info, you know." And so I hit him up, and he was like, "Oh yeah, man, just give me a call sometime, and I'll like, tell you what I know or like give you some tips."
Right.
I was like, "Cool." So I gave him a call, didn't answer, left a message or whatever. Waited like a couple weeks, called him again, didn't answer, left a message. I was just like, fuck Joshua Mays. And then later on, I think my friend was like, "Oh yeah, talk to him about it." He said he was just like super busy and he just kind of forgot. I was like,
"Yeah,
all right."
You're like that's I guess I forgive you.
Yeah, and then I was like talking shit like to all my friends, and we had a house party and he was there. And he's like, "Hey," everybody was like, "Hey, Joshua Mays is here. Like, you can start some shit." I was like, "Just better not talk to me, man." And then I was in the hallway, and he's like going to the bathroom. He had to go to the hallway to go to the bathroom. He's like, "What's up?" I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" Like, it was just,
you're like, "What's that mean?"
No, never mind. Like,
what do you mean, what's up?
What are you trying to say?
That's funny.
But yeah.
But you have a sort of a run-in with another guest of ours, Nate Van Dyke.
Oh yeah,
how you met him was pretty funny.
Yeah. It was at 111 Midnight. They did that like Sketch Tuesdays, right? Where you you draw and then put it up on the wall. And Nate Van Dyke was there, and I was super stoked, because he was like, "Oh shit, dude, it's fucking Nate Van Dyke."
Yeah, for sure.
And at the time, I was into this thing. I like challenging artists. Like if I met you and you're an artist, and I was like, "Oh, you want a battle?" And they'd be like, "What?" I just started doing it, and a lot of artists were like, "Nah, dude, like, what do you mean? Like, how would we do that?" And I'm like, "You do a drawing, I do a drawing. We'll see, who's better." And like, they're like, "What? Like, why would no?" And so I go up to Nate Van Dyke and I was like, "Oh man, hey man, it's really good to meet you. Like, I really love your shit." He's like, "Thanks, man." And I was like, "Hey, you want a battle?" And he's like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, you want a battle? You want to see like whose drawings sell?" Like just totally cocky, like over my shit. He's like, "All right." And he's like there taking his time on this one piece, and I'm trying to like bust out like 4 drawings, and I'm like just like crushing it. I'm like, yeah. I put my shit up there, and he's just taking his time, Then he finally puts his shit up there. Immediately, as soon as he put it up, it's gone, right? And my shit is still up there.
Wait, do people sell I've never been to a Sketch Tuesday.
Yeah. So basically, you do a sketch, and then you can put it on the wall and sell it for like however much you want.
Oh.
And like people just be there watching you make it, and then like they'll buy it if they want it. But yeah, he's like there and he's looking at my drawings, and I was like, "Fuck, none of them sold." Like I totally lost this battle. And he was like, "Hey man," I was like, "Hey," and he's like, "You're pretty good, but you should definitely take your time. You definitely rush through." And I was like, "Yeah."
Well, damn, that's some solid advice for sure.
Yeah. But he was really cool about it. Yeah, I tried to challenge Henry Lewis one time, and he was just like, "No, why the fuck would I do that?" And I was like, "I don't know, just like funsies." And he was like, "No, what do I gain from that?" Like, and I was like, "All right, cool, yeah, I get it, dude." Like,
yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I think after that one, I stopped doing that. I was like, "Yeah, you're right."
Yeah.
Speed up, fucking dick.
When they react like that, you should react with like, "I meant breakdance battle."
Dance battle.
Duh. Why would I battle you in art? Of course. What would you get out of it? What kind of silly question is that?
The other way to go is like, "Oh, you're scared, huh?" Yeah, that's right. You don't think you could beat me, huh? Like, just goad him. And, no, he would have kicked my ass.
Yeah.
Wipe the floor with me.
Yeah. I don't know if that's the best way to do it. Yeah. It's like that's because that's easily you just go like, "Oh, come on, man," and then you feel like the idiot.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
"Oh, you scared?" And then they go, "Come on, man."
Yeah,
go,
that's basically what he was. And it was like, "Ah, shit." All right. I just felt like a
you're right. Okay,
punk
bye.
art student trying to be cool, and I was like, "Ah."
Yeah.
I mean, I still don't understand the main loop.
The main loop. Yeah. What the fuck?
Do you want to talk about that? Can I ask you about that?
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
No, it came from.
Wait. Before you tell us, can we guess?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, let's guess.
Is it when you put your belt on in the morning, there is a specific loop that you think is the most important, and that loop is the main loop?
You're so close.
You got any guesses, Ozzy?
Yeah, is it when you finish a painting, do you like make a loop around the painting to be like, done?
Yeah.
That's it.
No.
Sign your name in that little.
Oh, I
little
got another one. Is it when you're eating a bowl of Fruit Loops, and you eat only the yellow ones because they're your favorite and they're the main loop that you're into?
Mystery solved.
Yes. And that's why we're detectives. Welcome back to our detective podcast, guys.
Listeners, please post your theories about why Sergio calls himself the main loop.
Yeah, waiting to
Keep it a
dry is
mystery.
about blood that's drying. We're detectives. Okay.
So stay a mystery.
Wait.
You're not going to talk about it?
No, I was.
It would actually be funny if you saved it for like the next podcast.
Yeah.
Just cold open.
Just every
All right,
time.
guys, enough.
Yeah, or we just
I'm
get
settling the rumors.
We just get every guest to explain what main loop means.
Yeah, you can add that after like why art school sucks.
Yeah. And now, what's your thoughts about the
Our
meaning
next
of main
topic.
loop?
Next on the agenda.
Yeah, it'd go deep for some people. The main loop is the loop around the sun that the Earth does every year. But yeah, so what's it mean?
So it came from back when I was on conceptart.org, which is an art forum that used to have that's where I met actually a bunch of people I know in San Francisco now. But that was my screen name on there, and it came from before that was a different forum that was like a hip hop forum that I used to go on, and so I chose the main loop because it was like the main loop in a beat, like the catchy part of a beat that loops. So that's all that's from. So sounds like nobody likes that explanation.
Yeah, no. I mean,
don't tell anyone that ever.
We're gonna have to edit that out of the podcast.
So just
I was fine with keeping it a mystery.
So we'll just cut that part out and just say that it's the Fruit Loop thing.
You know, I've always loved horror movies and just anything that's a little spooky. Like I love talking about just like death in general,
right?
And like the afterlife, and I mean, growing up, my all-time favorite place to be ever was the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland. You know, that's still. I mean, I still do fan art tributed to the Haunted. I'm working on a piece right now, actually, for the Haunted Mansion. Like I love that stuff. I think it's cool. It's stuff that people try to avoid or try to pretend like it's not going to happen to them. Like newsflash, nobody gets out alive. You know.
Wait, what?
But yeah.
Wait.
we all die eventually. Sorry to break it to you, Josh.
Oh no. I should start my bucket list today.
Right. But that's why I love things like skulls and like just anything that represents the other side, the uncomfortable side of life that people don't want to look at.
Right.
But if you pair it with something that's really pretty and fun to look at, it kind of softens the blow, makes it a little easier to take in, and then you can kind of realize like there's a beauty in that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, no matter what your subject matter, how macabre it gets, there's always a sense of whimsy to it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially, those little hummingbirds come in handy.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my really good artist friends, her name's Shauna Peterson, does really cool work like that too, where it's just like stroke, 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 done, perfect. Like, how did you know how to put all of that there? Like with me, I paint I paint in layers, I glaze like crazy. So it's like, you know, it starts with one layer, moves to the next. So it's like, I've heard it called direct painting versus indirect painting, kind of like alla prima versus, you know, like building something up, like whatever. But yeah, where you're like indirect painting is when you start with like a base and then you add layers and you're kind of sculpting with the paint, you know, bringing in shadows and highlights and all that stuff. And then direct painting is like you're putting down the color exactly where it's going to be. And that's so difficult to me. Like to see people who can master that, man, I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
I think it's really difficult, even to people who are good at it. It just took them
right, but they make it look
just
so
went down
easy.
that path. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, when an artist makes work look easy, that's when I'm like, man, I wish I was that good.
Yeah. I think it's just a matter of what you're inclined to go for. Like, I've kind of started when I went to school, a lot of what they showed us was direct painting, because I think especially in the illustration department, it was all about like get a painting done fast. And so like if you're really good at direct painting, that means that you can put your drawing down and then just paint on top of it and make the strokes where they need to be. Then voila, you have a nice illustration for you. But I think it's different for me. My natural inclination is actually, I think, a little bit more of an indirect method. So I've started to kind of go toward this blend of direct and indirect, where I'll put things down in a direct way in the first layer, then come back over and do all sorts of different scumbling and different sort of blending things. Yeah, exactly.
I think
I love that.
One other thing MJ reminded me about today, and I was like, do you have any like things you would want to bring up? And she brought up your social media being hacked like a couple of years back, and I was like, I forgot about that.
Yeah, that was weird. Yeah, that was like 2013, I think. That was like when Instagram like first got real big, and they had a real problem with like fake accounts and spam accounts and all that stuff. Like before they kind of got it handled.
Right.
Yeah, I remember there was like a lot of people, their accounts were just like disappearing.
Right.
And I was like, what the fuck? That's weird. Why would that happen? You know, I guess one of my friends knew somebody, blah, 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 knew somebody who worked for Instagram. And I guess at the time they didn't have like a real kind of department that kind of oversaw like stuff like that, where if somebody got reported so many times, it was just an automatic default where they just would like close down the account without investigating it per se, you know, which is what I heard. I don't know if that was true, but I remember I did get an email saying that I had violated their terms.
Oh, so it was Instagram that did it.
I don't know. I mean, obviously Instagram, but it could have been people, some haters, I don't know, maliciously reporting my stuff like constantly.
Wow.
Because nothing I didn't have any nudity. I didn't have any like anything that was profane, like any stuff like that. So I was like, what is happening? Like I kept getting these emails, and when I would email them back, I never got responses. I was like, what is this about? You know, like nobody ever said anything. And then
even if you did have nudity, you're so illustrative heavy that it's not like it's photorealism or something.
Yeah. So it was a trip. I had no idea what was going on or why it was happening. And then one day I was like tried to log in and I couldn't, and my account was gone. And I was like, wow, okay. So
I'm a little bit confused. So what happened was that somebody reported your account enough that Instagram shut it down, basically?
That's what I think happened.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. I don't know if it was like hacked, if somebody got in there and deleted it or whatever, but that's because I kept getting those emails saying that I was violating their terms. That's what I think happened. I think somebody was jealous, or I don't know what it was, or somebody didn't like what I was doing and they reported my work a bunch. And back then it was just kind of like, 3 strikes and you're out sort of thing.
Right.
So yeah.
That was a cool thing though, because I feel like the art world really united to be like,
that was really cool.
Yeah.
Like, cause when I like started up my account again, I was like, sorry you guys, I don't know what happened, but I guess I'm starting over. And then boom, it was like everyone was like instantly back, and it was like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. How many followers were you at that point?
I think I was like around 300 something thousand followers.
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah, no kidding.
Just a humongous army of people.
Right.
Yeah. I remember that happened, and then all artists just band together and said like, hey, Glenn Arthur got deleted, go back and follow him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that was really cool.
And then you were back to like almost pretty much where you were.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is awesome.
Yeah, it didn't take long at all to get all the followers back or whatever. And it was it was very inspiring, and I was very appreciative of all of like the support and everything. I was like, it was a confirmation to me, it was like a validation, like, okay, people really are interested in my work. This wasn't just a fluke.
Yeah,
sure. Like I'm doing okay.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
It's like I always remind people, look at anything around you. Like anything around you started with art. It started with a design. It started with an artist, a designer. Somebody had to sit down and create that on paper before it became a physical object. Yeah. You know, and so, yeah, you know, it's one of those things that you just kind of, you do, you know, you can't not do it. So, but having the following is definitely, you know, for selling art, it helps. But you know, I want to leave something behind because, you know, like we talked about earlier, everybody dies. Still shocking. And when you do, you can't take anything with you. So the only thing you can do is leave something behind. And that's my art.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, it's like, it's being an artist is almost, it's like a way of becoming immortal. You know,
I agree.
Your art is going to last a lot longer than you are. I mean, look at some of the artists that we still treasure. How long have they been gone?
Right.
Centuries. You know, but they're still talked about and they're still inspiring people. Like, I want to be a part of that. That's fucking rad.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people find their legacy in their children, you know, but me and MJ, we're very much on the like
artists probably shouldn't breed. I'm just kidding. If you want to have kids,
you have to plan for having very untalented children.
Well, you know, and that's the thing about being an artist is that it's completely unpredictable lifestyle. You never know. You never know when your next paycheck is coming in. You never know if you're going to be able to afford to eat top ramen or sushi. You know, like it's just one of those things that you kind of have to roll with the punches, and it takes a certain type of mentality to be able to deal with that uncertainty. But you know, it's people get this false sense of security from a day job. You know, there's no real security in that either. Anything could happen.
2008, you guys remember that?
The recession? Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was crazy. Like so many of my friends were like, I don't have a job anymore.
And then they were like, and my house is worth nothing. And war is the world.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like security is just one of those things that people think that they have, but they don't. It's like a false sense of security. So why not take a risk? Why not be a little bit more daring? You know, it's like you only got one life, as cliche as, you know, life is short, all that stuff. But like,
party hard, guys.
Right? You know, it's like, why not make a mark? Why not make something that's going to outlast you? You know, and if you can inspire people in the process, and if you can fulfill yourself creatively, like, do it. Like living a creative lifestyle, it's tough. I'm not gonna lie, I've definitely had some ups and downs. For sure, had a lot more downs than ups. But you know, it's so worth it to me. It's so cool.
I know,
I'm lucky. I'm a very lucky person, and you know, the followers help make it possible. So thanks, guys.
He's gonna thank you each individually.
I mean, I really like your Painted Roses girls, but I think they've almost run the course where I'm like, I want to see what you do. I'm very curious to see the next steps you take. And I don't know, maybe I'm speaking out of turn. Maybe you have more that you want to explore in that realm.
Kind of. I mean, there's things I want to do within the theme of girls and flowers, but I don't necessarily want to do the wallpaper style stuff all the time anymore. And it's just a matter of like the things I want to do take more sort of setup and like I have like ideas for props I want to get and stuff like that for things I want to do with it. But it's just when you doing everything else, all that just kind of gets put aside for a while. It's just, and it's also like right now I'm just trying to figure out where the next sale is coming from. And it's tough right now to really get too into it. But I mean, right now I'm also working at a framing shop, and that covers just enough to not worry about rent at my studio. So that actually helps a lot. I'm not like super stressed out about it. So other than the things I'm already committed to, as soon as I get done with that, I pull out the paintings again and start working on them more. And the thing I like about that is because I get to do all this stuff that I would never get to do with the Painted Roses things. Like I'm doing all these different things, like sanding the painting down and coming in and like almost like gouging out parts of the thick paint that I already put down just to see what happens. But you got what you're saying about like, I think that's what I like about having a more ambiguous narrative. It's just when somebody goes like a more overt thing, it's usually because they have like a specific story they want to tell, and it's like there's nothing wrong with that for me. I mean, I like a lot of movies that have like a beginning, middle, and end sort of thing too. So it's nothing against, like, it's just not the way that I personally like to make my art.
Yeah, and for me, I don't think it's the best delivery system for doing that. You know, like,
yeah,
I think it's like writing. It kind of goes back to like a movie versus a painting, and a novel versus a poem.
Right.
It's like if I hear a poem, I want it to. You know, a lot of times the poetry I like aren't necessarily like a beginning, middle, and end. Even though this poem it's based off of kind of is that way, but but it's much more of like I don't know, it's more like of a segment of something rather than a whole idea of something, which I think is
right,
or a concentrated idea that then you get to fill in the blanks or whatever.
Believe it or not, like, agree with him or not, it's, to me, that whole process of thinking about the world is way more interesting than his political cartoons. Like, if his art had anything to do with some of that, like the thing that it sounds like he's a lot more passionate about, well, maybe he's passionate about like just spouting off about Republicans, but like, to me, the subject matter of like getting into self and what that means, letting go of your ego and all that, it seems to me a more worthwhile discussion in art. So that part of it is like let's see what he does when he's actually for real sort of exploring himself through his art.
I think he has been. I just am not a big fan of that either.
Yeah, I just don't think he's gone deep in it. I mean, I'm not a big fan of any of his art either, but yeah, I mean, that's just what my
and one of the other things I got under my about. And so I ended up showing him a landscape of yours. So I was like, yeah, you know, you see the blue in the hills, and he was like, no.
Oh, that's funny.
And then so I then looked up one of your landscapes, and I found one with blue in the shadows. I was like, yeah, you see the blue in the shadow there, right? And I feel like it was like pretty blue, and he's like, that looks green. And then I zoomed in so that it was almost just the blue. And I was like, what does that look like? And he's like, well, there's little dots of blue, but most of it's green. And I'm like, I don't know what you see, man.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, that was one of those weird, you know, it's one of those like, just like, I don't know, stoner or something kind of conversations, even though I don't smoke weed or anything, but it's just like, you just start talking about what each person perceives and how do you know blue is blue to you and me, and you know, those kind of conversations where you just go into like, how do we know that your color is the same color that I see when I see whatever I see?
Yeah, because you pay on Dibon, it saved you a lot of extra damage on the thing that happened with you with the FedEx.
The FedEx,
I don't know if you want to get into that at all, but I'm super interested in what happened with that.
So I had a show in New York at Lionswood Gallery in January, and they were sending me all the paintings back in February because they couldn't store them, and all the paintings that didn't sell, and which is most of the paintings, but so they sent no, most of the paintings came back, which is just a sad detail. So they sent me like 5 different. A couple boxes, a couple crates of the paintings back. And one of the crates, which had 3 of the 3 biggest paintings from the show, just didn't show up. And after like 5 or 6 days of calling FedEx and trying to track the package down, they told me that they were just calling it lost and that I should just file for a insurance claim, and also get a new one from the manufacturer. They kept telling me on the phone, even though I kept going like, it's not I didn't order, it's not a thing, they can't get me another one, like it was infuriating.
I'm the manufacturer.
So anyway, I had a giant crate of very expensive paintings that ended up in North Carolina at a fabric supplier. Somehow the crate was damaged I think by them, I think the people that received the box wrecked the crate when they were opening it. This is my guess because there's no information on any of this.
Right, because they had no idea what was inside it, right?
They just got a giant crate.
Right.
Now my name is on the side of the crate and my address, which is weird.
Yeah.
That they still just started opening it.
Yeah.
So when FedEx finally located the package, they had to then go pick up the paintings and repack them.
Oh.
Which I was like, oh, this is not good at all. This is after 2 weeks of them being gone, missing entirely.
Right.
And everybody that I was in contact with in FedEx, I emailed and was like, these are paintings. Just please make sure they're packed well. Like, because I know they left New York in a wood crate with styrofoam packed like great. You know, and of course they just threw them in a box and sent them back. It's like literally no packing material whatsoever. So it's three paintings in the frames just back to back. And then they shipped it ground on the way back.
Yeah.
So all the framings were wrecked. All the frames were wrecked.
Did they at least put a fragile sticker on it?
No.
Oh my.
No.
Wow.
No fragile sticker, no popcorn, no anything. It was wild.
I'm surprised they didn't throw a rattlesnake in there.
I mean, it was like comically funny how little they cared about it.
Right.
At every point in this process, they were awful.
Wow.
And I've actually always used FedEx because I've heard horror stories about UPS from another artist.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, who had a box of paintings just gone.
Yeah.
And I kind of hear them every now and then, and like it's always something I expect to happen to me because the shit kind of tends to happen to me.
Yeah.
So all the frames were wrecked, and then the edges of the paintings were all kind of chipped. But and one of the paintings had a bunch of scratches in the front because the wire for the painting in front of it was directly on the surface of the other painting.
That.
Yeah.
But like had they been on wood or canvas, they would have been garbage. So that was nice.
So he says, there's never been an era in which artists can self-promote with such ease. So is a 50% gallery commission still relevant? When well-known artists can sell and deal with collectors directly, what will entice someone to have their prices so inflated and only earn half? So I guess it's like, what do you think a gallery is really is what that boils down to?
That's a great question. I mean, to some extent, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, 50%. I can't imagine that 30 years ago, if I was an artist, I would have thought that was cool.
No, it was
either.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
But back then, even it was less of a cut for
Was
gallery.
it?
Yeah, I think it was 70-30 for a long time.
Oh, I'd be okay
when
with
I talk to
that. That
people,
sounds good.
that
I didn't
have
know
been
that.
around since like the 80s. It like slowly has been like their gallery's been taking more and more
weird.
of their cut.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I mean, I think it's just a matter of like what the gallery does for you. Like
Yeah,
if the
I agree.
If the gallery is really proactive and pushing you as an artist and helping you in general with your career, like the showing with them helps you in other cities and they're good at promoting you, and like because there's lots of other benefits of doing a show besides just selling work, right? It's just like elevating your how visible you are to people and the collectors, and maybe they have collectors that you can't get to, or
right.
Yeah.
So I think I think it's a really, now especially, it's way just dependent on like I think you can't make a blanket statement of whether that's like good or bad now. I think if a gallery does a great job for you, then maybe that's worth 50%.
Oh yeah.
But if they don't, then like, and I've talked to a lot of artists these days that are like, well, I can sell 2 paintings to collectors directly for every, and I have to sell 4 paintings in a show to make the same amount of money. And for a show, I'm killing myself to get it done. So, and in that, and I kind of agree with that too. Like the payoff there doesn't really seem like it makes sense.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's just really subjective. As I slow down with the painting and like spend more time on each painting and less, hopefully have less like deadline stuff coming up.
Yeah.
Probably have to think more about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of the scenario I'm in right now, where the paintings are taking so much longer than before. It goes like, well, then what then becomes worth what is this painting worth now? And am I willing to share that worth with someone that I don't think has put in the amount of work as I have?
Yeah, and like it used when I first started showing, there were still like still money went to publication, like for advertising. So there was some money that the gallery obviously has staff and real estate and like they're a business, but they were also like promoting the show with things that cost money. And now the galleries are also using their social networks, which does not cost money. So there's a different like, the amount of money that goes into your show specifically is now different, but the cut that they get is still the same.
Well, I think Velázquez is considered like top 3 greatest portrait painters of all time, pretty much.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, you have like Rembrandt and
Velázquez, and then like
was that on
else?
like a VH1?
It was a BuzzFeed article.
Working it down, top 10. That's pretty. Yeah, I just saw Velázquez paintings at the Met. And I've seen maybe 3 or 4 now. And then at the Met, I just saw 5 new ones, plus one that I've already seen.
I think they have 1 or 2 at the Art Institute of Chicago. I think that's where I saw the ones that I've seen.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was incredible. I've never been to the Met, and it was an amazing little journey, I guess, and didn't realize how massive it was. I'm such a bubble boy that for me, museum is the Legion of Honor. It's pretty big, but it's nowhere near the size of the Met, or I'm sure museums in Europe. But it was really awesome to go in and realize how massive it was. So I remember going to the information, like, I think we only have 2 hours to do this. So I went to the info and I'm like, where's Madam X? Sergeant? And then I'm like, where's the Velázquez room? And then he sort of guided me. And then I said, okay, if we have time for anything else, what do you think I should see? And he's like, well, do you like Vermeer? I'm like, yeah, let's do this. And then he kind of gave me he gave me a little sheet that I have up there, and it has all the names of the artists. So we kind of worked our way over to the Vermeer first, but on our way over there, it was impossible to not walk into a room and be like, oh my God, there's a blah, blah, there's paintings by Van Dyke. There's paintings by just a lot of artists that I guess I didn't think that were going to, be there necessarily. Rubens paintings and stuff. And then, so we ended up finally making our way over to the Velázquez after a couple of rooms, and it was just like the most emotional experience. It was insane. As soon as I walked in, I was just saying, oh my God. I was with my girlfriend Michelle, and I just walked right up to one of the Velázquez paintings, and I just started crying. It was like such an emotional like buildup. It was so intense. Wow. And I couldn't even control it. I'm like, I'm not like, I didn't want to get that way, And it was just, I had to go kind of in the corner and just put my head down. I thought I had to like walk out of the room because it just took over. It was like having a little mini attack. But
that's awesome.
Yeah. How many did you say they have there?
Well, at the Met, I think right now they have 2 on each side, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think. Yeah, the Juan de Pareja, one of the daughters, I guess, from the Las Meninas, one of the Infantas or Margarita or whatever. And then they had one of the dudes on the horse. I'm terrible with the names. And then the one with the all red, red hat, red cloak.
The Pope one? Or
no, it wasn't a Pope one. I mean, he might have been part of the group, but it's not like the Pope, Papa. Yeah. They had that one here at the Legion a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I remember that one. I stared at that one for so long.
That was amazing. And then they had the self-portrait that was recently cleaned up and discovered, I guess.
Nice.
That one was at the Unfinished Works at the Met last year.
Oh, yeah, I remember that show. That was one that I wanted to go to. But
that was a good show.
We were talking on the ride here, and we were talking about movies and music and how like amazing those two like delivery systems are for artwork, because they pull out the emotion. We were talking about how movies can just get you emotionally invested, and they have like their little tricks of the trade where they can easily do it.
Right.
And whenever anyone talks about art and how it like emotionally moves them, I'm always like astounded by it, because I feel like it's one of the more challenging mediums to use to pull out emotion. But I think that's like one of art's like main jobs, So
I think for me too, because I do that with movies. I'm definitely a sucker when it comes to certain movies. There's like every time, like, it's gonna sound cheesy, but every time I watch ET, like, at the end I'm just bawling, it's like I cannot help it. And with painting, I think with the Velasquez, it wasn't just seeing the image, because when I was there I was telling Michelle, I was like, I don't even know what I'm looking at, like it's just I don't even know what I'm looking at. I was just like, am I looking at the painting, or am I looking at the idea of the painting now, where it's built up for so many years that this is my hero, my king, and my idea of what a painting is, and that was like being really, that's been sort of my religion, it's my mantra. Like I do it every day, and I look at Velasquez every day, and I talk about him, and going to see this, it was like seriously going to, I don't know, for someone religious, going to like some big monument or whatever historical place, and that's really what it was. And I think when I tell the story, I have to tell the story of when I showed up to the museum and how long it took me to walk to that corner and being distracted by so many things. Finally, when I got to that back room, it was just like everything was just, it was a buildup, And it wasn't just a buildup from walking there. It was like it's been since 2008 or whenever I discovered Velasquez, or 9, so it's been a little bit of a journey. And seeing him in a room like that was, it was so powerful. And that's really awesome. What it was. It wasn't necessarily just about the painting. It was the idea of it. And
that's
interesting.
That's cool. That's a cool thought process. It's almost like the same process a movie goes through.
I was about to say, it's almost like your little mini hero's journey.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I think you should just fart at this point.
All right, guys. Well, this is our episode. We apologize for everything we just did to your ears. But yeah.
I'm really curious to see what the numbers are going to be on this episode.
0 listeners.
It's just I could see, like, in iTunes, it'll tell you, like, how long people listen to an episode. So I'm just going to see how quickly they drop off.
I give it 5 minutes. Like total, like of all the listeners added up, like when they stop listening, that total amount would be 5 minutes.
It's probably a bad time to tell people to rate and review us on iTunes.
I know, we forget that all the time. It really helps us, guys, if you rate and review us, unless you're not going to give us 5 stars. In that case, stop listening, please, and we hate you. We only take compliments. Any negative criticism, we pretend never happened, because we are, as it says in the good book, what is the book called again?
The Art Spirit.
The Art Spirit. It says, "Thou'th artist iseth a lifestyle in which no one is of wrongeth doing."
Bro.
So stayeth woketh. All right. Well, this is our fucking episode.
We're trying hard not to end it at the same time trying to end it.
It's like we're drunk and we're driving in a car on a slippery road, and
or a rope that works.
Yeah, or a rope. Yeah, we'll make it one step farther, and we're kind of like, should we do this? Should we keep going, or and drive straight into that wall, or should we stop and survive? So
hit the brakes.
All right, guys. This has been Waiting to Dry.
If you're still listening, what are you doing to yourself?
If you're still listening, we respect you. All right, bye.
All right.
This is Ozzy, and I fucking hate Waiting to Dry. And Mello does too. But the best thing to do when you're waiting for the dry, or waiting for it to dry, is to grab a burrito from your Loco Taco truck. That's right, Loco. Not local. Loco Taco truck.